Hi, it's Mark Owen from Mark PR, the editor of Punchline magazine. Today I'm joined by Steve Jordan. Councillor Steve Jordan, the leader of the Cheltenham Borough Council, who I've just heard today is making plans to step down. Hi, Steve. Welcome to Punchline Talks.
Afternoon, Mark. Yes.
Really great to see you. You took us all a bit by surprise today.
Oh well, keep them guessing, I always say. But yeah, from a personal point of view, it's something I've been thinking about probably about this time last year, realistically. Because I guess when you approach these things, my general rule of thumb is that in a leadership role, if you're after about 10 years, that's probably your shelf life if you're lucky. And I've done 12, more over 12 now. So I think both from the organisation point of view, you could say, well, it might be time for a change. And certainly from a personal point of view, there's a bit of wear and tear being leader in the council, it's fair to say. So I think it's probably I could do a change as well. So yes, that's the announcement was, yes, I will be stepping down and I won't be sort of fighting the next elections in May. Well, presume they're next year. Who knows at the moment? But yeah, that's the expectation.
And are you going to be like Theresa May and hang in there for a little bit? And what's
yes, I think I definitely want an orderly transfer. So yeah, the way it'll work is that the Liberal Democratic group, obviously we are the largest group on the council, will elect a new leader in due course. And then the assumptions, one will follow the other. That leader will then be elected leader of the council. So that would have to happen at a full council meeting. So we're probably talking months rather than weeks in reality. But yes, it's definitely the end is in sight from my point of view.
So I don't really know very much about you, Steve. Obviously, we've met on numerous occasions. I really always appreciated, us having our chats. So you invited me to the council offices, and we've had some nice meetings over the years as well. So thank you very much for that, and always being so candid and always telling us what's going on and keeping us abreast, keeping Punchline readers abreast as well. So I'd just like to say thanks ever so much for that. What do you think has been, if you don't mind me asking, your greatest success as leader of the Cheltenham Borough Council?
To a certain extent, I mean, hopefully it's something that's still emerging, because I think one of the biggest things that we've done for Cheltenham is invest our time, effort and money in particular into the West Cheltenham, Golden Valley, Cyber Central, because that is going to be so big for the future, not just Cheltenham, but for the whole area. So, I mean, clearly there's a way to go on that, but it was a fairly bold step to invest 37.5 million of the council's money, if you like, into that. And I think that's going to be really big. So that's got to be a big one, certainly.
And wouldn't you like to see that through a little bit further, or have you played the game?
Realistically, it's going to take decades, I think, for the whole thing to roll out. So I suspect there might be a few people aren't around by then. But no, I think, I guess you could always say, oh, I just want to stay on for this, or I just want to stay on for that. And I think one thing, because I was looking about 12 months ago when I was thinking, well, is it time to go? At that stage, you may recall that Pat Prattley is just stepping down as the chief executive of the council. So I thought it was only fair to see through a new chief executive, and Gareth is now well established and I think doing a great job. And we generally have a very strong management team at the council now, so that's positive. We then obviously came into the general election, so that was put things on hold for a bit, and then we were into COVID. So and then the practical consequence of that, as well as clearly major problems that we've all been grappling with, the elections went back a year. So now a year later, I'm having the same thought about is it time to step down? And I think basically the answer this time was yes.
What about I agree with you. I think it's amazing what's going to happen with Cheltenham, and fingers crossed it all comes right. What about your greatest failings? What would be the one thing, if you could say?
Well, I think one of the ironies is that, for instance, one of the things I think has been a real positive, we set up, in fact, we've just rolled it into the recovery task force. When we set up the Cheltenham Development Task Force, which I think did a lot of positive work and was sort of public-private think tank, if you like, on behalf of the town, we started off with the aim of developing the old black and white site, which was council owned at the time. Now we got to the point where we sold it, and we've actually reinvested a lot of the money in some other things. But unfortunately, the site itself is still a surface car park. So that is a disappointment that we haven't managed to progress that into what could have been an exciting development. I mean, there's still talks going on with the current owners, but yeah, unfortunately, we haven't got that far yet.
And Cheltenham High Street is looking a little bit poor at the moment. What do you think? Obviously, COVID's had a massive effect on that, but it wasn't just COVID. Let's be honest, we've seen a decline for quite some time. How do you see the High Street panning out, the likes of Montpellier and all those areas?
Yeah, I mean, certainly from my point of view, I've always, the thing about the Cheltenham as a whole, not just the High Street, it has to be an attractive place to be. So both for the residents here in the first place, the businesses here, and the people we want to attract as visitors, we need to make it an attractive place to be. So that's always been the ambition. And large parts of it we've got a lot of great things happening in Cheltenham generally. And again, there's lots of things that struggling at the moment. But yeah, literally in the High Street, for me, it's about flexibility. So when it comes to planning, anything else, we need to be open to options that will actually keep it a vibrant place to be. So it isn't always about shops, and clearly, you know, that's declining. We know that it has been for some time. So certainly, we as a council, we've been fairly flexible in terms of how we approach that going forward. And again, I was around for the setting up of the Cheltenham bid, which I think has been really positive, and I've been on that. So there lots of conversations there about how we help the businesses and how the businesses can help themselves.
Yeah, are you pleased with where the Cheltenham bid's panned out?
I am, yeah. No, I think it's been a great asset because it's invested in things like Light Up Cheltenham. So the council does a certain amount of things, but clearly we got limited amounts of finance. They've added value with the Christmas lights, the Light Up Cheltenham, you know, bringing the big wheel in and all that sort of thing. So I think all those have been great. And then the big question is, you know, the important thing is we need to keep that sort of thing going for the future when we come out the other side of COVID.
Yeah, I mean, COVID is going to have such a big, massive an effect, obviously, with festivals, and Cheltenham's well known as a festival town.
Yeah.
What do you think the long-term knock-on effect of COVID is going to be for that?
Well, I think, to a certain extent, some of that's gone online. So there will be sort of more, so many things that have happened, and we've sort of jumped forward about 5 years in terms of virtual meetings like this and all sorts of things, which would have happened over time, and we've accelerated them. So that's probably a positive. But I think it may be going to hybrid events. So you can, you know, I think it's always good to have people present because it's a bit like watching football without a crowd. I haven't quite got used to yet. You know, it's nice to have people around, even if you're looking from afar. So it's that hybrid will be something maybe we can build on.
Yeah, I think it just takes a bit of time, isn't it? I don't know about you, but I try and watch the football, and it just doesn't have the same buzz for me, actually,
No.
Watching Match of the Day on a Saturday night.
I haven't even renewed my season ticket yet because I haven't offered mine.
Are you? What team do you support?
Ace is Reading.
Oh, right. Okay. Never mind.
That's where I come from originally. Going back to my history, that's where I come from. You see.
Oh, right. Okay. How did you end up in Cheltenham?
Well, there's a story. At the age of 18, I came here to go to college. I particularly sympathise with all the 18-year-olds at the moment who've been, you know, having to grapple with moving from home and COVID at the same time. Don't really bear thinking about that.
So how did you get into politics? Were you always interested in politics? Were you always been a Liberal Democrat?
I was always interested. I wasn't doing anything active in Reading. So ironically, when I came to Cheltenham, I was staying at the YMCA, and going way back, I was watching the result of the Bermondsey by-election come in. I happened to be sat next to the person who was the then Liberal agent for Cheltenham. We were chattering. I offered to deliver some leaflets, 1982, and then that was that really.
And where did you stand straight away, or did you just help?
No, I carried on delivering leaflets, and I volunteered to be agent for the local elections, 84, I think that was the first time. And then the vacancy in All Saints Ward, got initially elected in 1986. And I haven't been there ever since because I lost a couple of times, but I've been in All Saints ever since.
Okay.
Although the boundaries have moved around a bit, but it's always been All Saints.
How did you feel when you lose? Do you just dust yourself off, or is it just guttering?
I mean, it depends on the first time is more of a shock, but sometimes you can see these things coming. Obviously, given what's happening nationally and stuff, and sometimes it's slightly more surprising. But I think I've got a 9 wins to 2 defeats, so I haven't done too badly over the years.
Yeah, you can't really call that a knockout, can you? 9-2. I think that's pretty good going. You know, so you've been a councillor for 30 years. What's the biggest changes that you've seen, not just in the chamber, but to the city as well? What's the main things that you've noticed? Well,
we never got to be a city, but apart from that,
well, okay.
I know what you mean. Well, funny enough, the first time I got elected was actually a recount. So it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and having sort of been duly elected, I was then given about a 6-inch wad of paperwork to take away to study. That was my induction. I think we got a better process. So bringing people into the process, I like to think we can now have a better induction process that isn't quite as here's a big wad of paper and go and read it. So and I think it's on that theme really, because I think it's, you know, there's an awful lot of community work been developed over the years. That I think the council has got sort of hopefully more bold in the things it's prepared to do, because there's always an assumption, you know, council sort of sit in the background, and you know, when there's an emergency, you might pick things up. But I think we've been proactive in getting out in say, you know, West Cheltenham being a classic example of investing, and you know, trying to be out front, if you like, on some of these things. So I guess that's one of the big changes. I mean, clearly technology has changed fairly dramatically.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know how the politics is of the Cheltenham Borough Council, but how long has it been a Liberal Democrat-led council?
Well, it was when I first was elected, it was a Liberal Democrat well, actually it was Liberals then, of course, before, well, Liberal Democrats didn't even exist at that stage. It was a Liberal Democrat administration in a minority. And then it stayed no overall control till 1991, and that was the first Lib Dem majority. And it's been most of the time since then. I mean, it's swung backwards and forwards a bit, but you know, the majority of that time it's been Lib Dem administrations.
And moving slightly, you know, to where we are now, and the you know, don't want to be controversial or anything, in the hospital and what's going on there. How do you think that's going to pan out? What's your wishes for Cheltenham Hospital?
I think it's something that Cheltenham needs. There are definite concerns. I'm not an expert on these things, I wouldn't claim to be, but and although in many ways Cheltenham and Gloucester we would try and work together, but when it comes to things like emergency care, has Gloucester really got if Cheltenham is going to sort of phase out, I'm not convinced that Gloucester actually has the capacity and has the ability to take all the demand, if you like. So it is absolutely essential that is actually got right.
Do you see in the future that it'll be one big council, municipal council? It's been on the cards for a little while. There's lots of rumorations that it's all going to be joined one big council.
I mean, who knows? I guess it's a short answer. But from a personal view, I've always worked with the status quo, so we literally can't change it at our level. I'm more than happy to try and make the status quo work, and I think now isn't the time really for a huge change. We've got enough to be grappling with as it is with COVID and all the other things we're trying to do. So for me, it is not the time to be completely sort of tearing up local government and starting again. If you were to start again and had a unitary authority, clearly there may be some advantages. I'm personally not convinced. So one of the things that's talked about is financial savings. I think when you get to that stage, I think most of those have been taken anyway, because we've been saving for decades. I can't see there's going to be a huge amount left to be extracted at that point. But you know, there may be more efficiency. So we have a classic example where, you know, the county council, the highways authority. So if we want stuff done in Cheltenham, we have to go to the county council to get, you know, roads and anything else done, which has its frustrations, it's fair to say. So I think having more say, so having a tier less so you can actually have more say in the local area makes sense. I'm not convinced that you necessarily go to a whole county. I think that may be too big, but I think there may be smaller unitary areas that would make sense.
Has it been a problem? Obviously, there's been the Tory party in charge of the county council for quite some time. Obviously, you being a Liberal Democrat council, is that problematic, or has it been a problem?
I'm clear, I mean, there are issues, but equally, I mean, it's probably to say that certainly at district level, I mean, for instance, when we've done the joint core strategy, that's been across political boundaries, if you like, with other districts. So with Tewkesbury and Gloucester, and I think that's worked pretty well over a decade or more now. I think I'm not so much whether party politics or not. I think dealing with the county council seems to be an issue for all districts across the country to a certain extent, without giving any secrets away. So I think, yes, it is sometimes the nature of the beast, I guess.
And I mean, moving forward for yourself, what are you going to do next? What's your plans? I mean,
well, to be honest, I don't have a grand plan. I mean, there's lots of things that I haven't done over the last sort of 10, 20 years that I could probably have a go at now. What I have said is politically, I'm happy to be agent at the next, as I would have, you know, on the grounds I'm not standing, I will have a role as election agent, which I have been doing on and off for a while. So it's a bit of a penance, if you like, but there's no particular grand plan, I must admit.
All right. Now you're a big green advocate. I think when I first met you, you didn't have a car. I don't know.
I still don't. I've never owned a car. No.
All right. Do you not drive at all? Do you have a driving license?
Initially, no, I don't know. Technically, I don't. I've had lessons a long time ago.
All right. How do you get around, like Richard Graham, on his bicycle, or do you have a bike? I don't know how you get around.
Well, obviously, to be honest, I don't get out much at the moment. But no, generally speaking, when in more normal times, I tend to be have user of the buses and trains and things, walking a lot. Okay,
so you're a big advocate of obviously local transport, but surely it doesn't always work so well, though, does it? Or do you have a nice taxi allowance?
I don't use taxis a huge amount. No, I have no taxi allowance.
Okay.
No, I mean, sometimes it's fair to say there are some places you can't get to. So yeah, hopping in a taxi is definitely an occasional option, shall we say? But I mean, one of the things I think we're talking about, which I've been keen to see for ages, is some sort of better mass transit system between Cheltenham and Gloucester. And I think, again, talking about the county council, I think that's very much on the county council's agenda. And I think if we get, because there's always been talk about, you know, Cleve to Quedgeley by Cheltenham and Gloucester as something that would be useful. I think particularly if we do get the increased development that we've been talking about, I think that's an essential as part of that process.
What about the Gloucester Airport? Do you ever see that? I mean, there was plans being thrown away that Gloucestershire Airport should be a big housing thing, with the super city they were calling it. Do you ever see anything like that happening, or would you ever have desires to see that happen?
I mean, obviously, as the council, we're joint owners of the airport, so I know we put quite a lot of effort in to make it, to make the company viable, and that's still sort of an ongoing process. I mean, it's difficult to tell because, I mean, one of the difficulties at the moment, clearly, the aviation industry is clearly one of those most affected by COVID. So we've been very much working with the airport to try and develop the future and look at what the options are, to be fair.
And one thing I've got to ask you now, you've obviously chaired an awful lot of meetings over the years, Steve. What would be your top 3 tips of chairing a meeting that you could pass on?
Well, my personal, I keep calm.
Keep what, sorry?
Keep calm.
Right.
Because if the chair loses their rag, you've probably got an end of a meeting coming up. Make sure people get a fair chance to have their say, because there can be frustration if people, if somebody is hogging the opportunity, shall we say. And the other thing I tend to just to keep your eye on the agenda, so you're forward planning rather than worrying about what necessarily you're saying, sort of planning ahead to make sure you know what's going on.
Well, Steve, all I can say here from everybody at Punchline, thank you ever so much for joining us today. And I'd just like to wish you, on a personal note, all the very, very best for the future.
Thank you very much.
And I hope you carry on reading.
I do. I'm sure I will. If you keep pinging me the emails, I'll carry on reading them.
Well, we've got to keep going, don't we? Thanks very much. Cheers, Steve.
Cheers, then.